We can't possibly know how painful certain things were, how exciting they were, but we as a part of the community have been concerned, have been, cheering them on and hoping for the results that we got. We got a group of people who took their charge very seriously and researched and talked to people and did everything they could to be clear and to include people, all parts of our community in the Amherst area, and with the idea that change is possible and change can happen. And they came, even with the doubters, they came up with some very good and solid ideas. And even though in some areas, again, we have people who do not think the election was real. So we know that unreality is the name of the game nowadays. And it comes even to here in Amherst that there are problems, but they are solvable. And we just want you to know at the beginning of this, I wish more of you were here, because we at the Racial Justice Committee, and I know Marcy will back me on this, are very, very pleased and excited with the work you've done. We know you have worked hard and the results are excellent, and we are pushing to continue and to have this thing solved in a more decent way. I want to be like in Evanston, where they say, this is a community that made a change. It took them da-da-da-da-da, and this is the steps they took. So right now we have Ms. Pat Onabaku and Mr. Russ Vernon Jones, and Jennifer Moyston will be joining us soon, that are part of the process in the community service working group. And I'm going to turn it over, I think, first to Russ now, because I think it's time we get started. And if people come in, we'll just let them in quietly.
Great. Thank you, Andrea. Let me say, I'm going first only because Ms. Pat insisted. But yes. Thank you for inviting us. Throughout our work, it has made such a difference to know that there are people and groups in the community supporting us and cheering us on, and looking forward to backing good recommendations if we could develop them. And those of you on the screen are among those folks that we have counted as our supporters and and cheerleaders, and hopefully people who will lobby for the full implementation of the recommendations we've made. Our two co-chairs, Alicia Walker and Brianna Owen, send their apologies. They had originally hoped to be here. I know Alicia is at a training or some event that's required as a new member of the town council. And we're celebrating her election to the town council. It was quite remarkable, I think, for Amherst to have a committee that was actually from the beginning designed, it was in the call for the committee, designed to be at least 2/3 people of color. And in the end ended up being entirely people of color with the exception of myself. And I think that was a powerful experience for Amherst and for those of us. Well, have I been muted all that time?
No.
No, okay, all right. So it was a powerful experience, I think, both for Amherst and for those of us on the committee. And as you know, we had a set of recommendations that we presented in May. And there are things there that are still not funded that we think are very important. The two that are moving forward most rapidly are the Community Responder Program, which we've called CRESS, Community Responders for Equity, Safety and Service. And that has been funded at the level of 8 responders for the coming year, and a director and a grant-funded project manager position as well. And then the posting is now out for the director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think maybe it's this this week or next week, sometime soon, the town manager will be formally presenting the proposal to the town council for the creation of two new departments, the DEI department and CRES. So there's a lot we can say about each of the recommendations we've made. But Ms. Pat, maybe you would talk a little bit about your particular role in bringing voices of the community into our work and challenging us to go all out for the things that would make the biggest difference in terms of racial justice.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. I want to start first by thanking you guys, the organizers, for this event. And I also want to thank you for your continued support for CSWG through your writings, letters to the council, your public comments, your support all the time. Thank you so much. In addition to what Ross has said, I think for me, and I can only speak for myself, I joined the group and whatever contribution that I made in the group, I did it from reparation perspective. I feel the work of CSWG is about reparation for BIPOC folks. I feel that alternative public safety is very critical, very important for the lives of BIPOC folks that live in Amherst. And obviously the DEI is the same thing. I was the one who pushed for like the multicultural center because we do not have, safe space here to gather. And that is not even on the town council budget. They didn't even look into that. So that's very concerning. In terms of the core group for CSWG, I think in my role, I felt that the younger generation should take the leadership after I consulted with Ross, that we should, when our chairperson stepped down, Paul Wiley, I felt that we needed, younger generation to lead us. And, both Alicia and what's her name? Did a very good job. Brianna did a very good job leading CSWG. So for me, I have been involved in all kinds of groups and organizations in this town, starting from the school system with the theme of social justice. And I tried my best to get input from my network. And then I bring it to CSWG. And it's not just only my ideas. So it was very important that I hear from people that we don't typically hear from immigrants, from low-income folks, to people with disability, and so on and so forth. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. That I bring their perspective to CSWG, because I know that our group had a huge platform to bring awareness of the struggles of BIPOC folks in this town. I think more than anything else, to get perspective from the youth, one of our CSWG member, Darius Cage, even though his school schedule and sports didn't allow him to always attend, but I made sure that I connect with him before some of our meetings, and it was really, really helpful to get his input as what he would, because they are our next future generation, what he would like to see, and his colleagues. And what he did was to consult with his classmates at high school too. And so those perspectives, I made sure that I reach out to broad range of BIPOC folks in our town. My experience, which isn't very surprising, is that when issues that impact BIPOC folks, the people in power do not take it very seriously. That's when we get nickel and dime, like we don't have money to have budget for that, this and that, this and that. So to me, it was very disrespectful for town council sometimes to question why we need number of staff for CREST program, for example. Why can they merge youth program to existing leisure services, which is not the same because leisure services is not BIPOC space for us. And I think the group itself, CSWG, for some reason, we all clicked together. Like, I was very amazed. I knew most of the members, but for one member that I didn't know, it just felt that I've known her for a very long, long time. Like, people were very bold, honest, raw, to express, how we felt, what we need change in this town. And I just have so much admiration for our young generation. I was looking back, like when I was in their age, I wasn't even that brave to speak up like that. So they made it all worthwhile in the group. So what is the future? Well, as you all know, CSWG, was dissolved on last month, November 1st. And there's supposed to be replacement committee that they haven't even started. The manager hasn't even started the selection process or committee that will interview folks. I did apply, and Deborah Ferreira, one of the CSWG members, also applied, because when we wrote the new committee, we insisted that we have to have 2 folks join the group. Same thing with the oversight resident board as well. So we don't know when this committee will, get created, and I'm very, very concerned about not having that group to give input on the budget process. For example, like if we go as individual, I don't think it helps a lot, but if it's like a group, I think it would be more powerful. And so I worry about that. That's one of my worries. I'm a very positive person. And so I like to see something good in whatever experience that I have. I think there is, I feel we moved the needle a little bit. Alicia was elected. The town is talking about creating 2 departments. Hopefully the CREST program will get off the ground, even though it's severely underfunded. And CSWG, we're planning to write a book, which will be a gift to the town. We plan to donate those books to our local libraries. Because what I found out is that people forget history very quickly. There are some folks that will ask, do you know about this group? And they say, I've never heard about it before. And so we do not want the work of CSWG to just, be forgotten, so that many, many generations in Amherst will know what we did. So I will stop. If you guys have any questions, thank you for listening.
Well, Jennifer Moisten is with us now. I think if you can hear us, Jennifer, I wondered if you would talk a little bit about where we are.
I'm here. I'm driving.
Oh, you're driving.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I just have a little bit of bad reception. Just a few minutes, please.
Okay.
Okay. Why don't I make a couple of comments, then we can have Jennifer talk a little more. Fairly early on, our group made a decision that simply providing better training for the police department was not going to take care of the issues that we were concerned about. And I think we saw that for 2 reasons. One is that white people change very slowly with regard to their ability to act in a consistent, reliable, powerfully anti-racist way. And the other is just the nature of policing, that police departments were originally created for the purpose of controlling Black and brown bodies in order to promote the safety and comfort white privileged people. So we made a decision that while we did think there was training, needed, but that the things we wanted to rely on, one was creating ways that the BIPOC community could simply have far fewer unwanted interactions with the police department. So we looked for what are functions that the police currently have that someone else could do that would limit the amount of the interactions that the police have, that BIPOC people have with the police department. Another was to provide a level of accountability that hasn't existed before. And that's where we came to the Resident Oversight Board as a body that would have the power to hear complaints, to subpoena people and information, and make public recommendations about discipline for police officers if they violated what's expected of a unbiased police department. So those two things are sort of still, themes that run through our work. How do we reduce unwanted police contact for BIPOC people, and how do we provide a level of accountability to the police that will not allow misbehavior to continue, or officers who perpetuate inconsistent behavior, that kind of behavior, to remain on the force. So, the Resident Oversight Board is a key piece of accountability. A key piece of the separation is beyond the CREST program are the recommendations we made in Part B about traffic stops. And I think this is a really key area that I hope you will help hold the feet of the town council to the fire on. There are a number of municipalities and the entire state of Virginia that have set it up so their police departments may not make traffic stops for any low-level offense that isn't creating an immediate danger. And in our report, we have several ways of specifying what low-level offenses are. But what it does is it prevents the police from making pretextual stops. It prevents the police from using the excuse of a brake light or something else being the reason they then stop and do unwanted searches. We also recommend prohibiting any consent searches. Many searches require the consent of the driver. We've proposed eliminating those altogether. These are policies that it is unlikely that the police department is going to be enthusiastic about accepting. And some places the police chief has accepted it. We have not been able to find any place where the police, the rank and file, were enthusiastic about or even willing to support these changes. So it requires the legislative body or administrators to go against the will of the police department in order to establish this kind of safety for BIPOC people. And then finally, we did say there are some ways that the police department could change to become more anti-racist. And we have a whole section about creating an anti-racism departmental culture. And some of us have talked with the town manager and some town council members about that, really not just being for the police department, but a description of some things that might be addressed in every department of the government of the town to move toward an anti-racism departmental culture and to help all employees understand what that means and how they might be a part of that. So those are just a few highlights of, kind of what we were thinking as we went about this. Jennifer, can you speak to us a bit now? Oh, you're still muted.
She's frozen.
You're unmuted, but we're not hearing you.
I think she's frozen. You can. Okay, maybe that might help.
Am I still frozen?
You're good now.
No, we can hear you.
All right,
Good.
excellent. I'm sorry, I'm like shopping, and so I'm taking a break to do this. So,
Great.
so the CSWG was a great experience for the town. They haven't had a board or committee that was so progressive, I think would be the word to use. And then also at the same time, we learned a lot. And unfortunately, CSWG was the group that had to go through it, but we did learn a lot. So when the Reparations Committee began, when that opened up, we just had the finance director come and speak because he can give a better breakdown of the budget and all the crucial points. And so that was something that we learned. So that the CSWG just did not wasn't aware of the way the town operates to a level that was going to make them help make these decisions. Sorry. So there was a lot learned. And I know that Pat had spoke about the successor group, which there is a successor group coming. We have had some applicants, but I think they kind of wait until everyone is there or enough of a pool. And so we're still trying to generate those. And I know that Alicia and Russ and Brianna do a really good job in the implementation team of voicing how the community feels. So that's not lost. And so we're working with those things. And it was definitely a process. We did find out like things that worked one way, or for the other boards and committees that have been consistent with the town and were standing committees, maybe the way that the town manager represented or brought to the town council their ideas or their recommendations wasn't necessarily applicable for the CSWG. And that was like really important, to have the CSWG in a meeting and then have the town manager answer all of those questions. That was hard, right? And so that was something that we did learn from that and try to move forward in a more proactive way.
Thank you, Jennifer. If you could explain what the CREST implementation team is. Some folks may not know what it is.
Yes, I'm sorry. And so the CREST implementation team is the two chiefs, the fire chief and the police chief, Gabe Ting, Mike Curtin, who's the dispatcher supervisor, and myself and Russ, Brianna, and Alicia. And so we are all working to implement the CREST program, which is much harder than just saying like, let's start this. There's just a lot of barriers, but then there's a lot of room for improvement and moving forward.
Andrea, I think at this point, we'd be happy to open it to questions, or unless there's something else you especially want us to address first.
Okay, let me just see if I can see if you can unmute people. I was trying to do it here, but I think.
I think people have to unmute themselves.
I think you have to unmute yourselves. I thought I could unmute everyone.
Okay.
Okay, the one, you have something you're thinking of, Marcy, because it's what I'm
No, I just have a question, but I'll wait. Yeah.
Go on, say it.
Oh, but go ahead, say what you were going to say.
No, I was going to say CREST. I really would like you to say what that means. It is such an important element that in other parts of the country where it's been instituted, it has been such a success in relation to the police, because the police end up with fewer problems as a result of the success of the CREST program. And I think maybe we need to explain that. It's not about we're going to get the police. It's about we're going to talk and get situations. Please, please explain this, because it is, I have looked it up and researched it, and it is very successful all throughout the United States where it has been tried. So can one of you kind of talk about the CREST program a little bit? You know, it specifically what its purpose is?
Ross, do you want to go?
No, why don't you start off, Ms. Pat, and then
Sure. So,
add in.
okay, I want to start by saying that I come from family of police, and there is this misunderstanding in our community that CSWG, that we hate the police. We want to get rid of police department completely, which is not true. So I see the benefit of having non-police staff to deal with nonviolent situations. I think that in terms of the success of CREST program, it had, the town administrator and the town council, they have to make sure that they pay it, that is pay equity, basically. Like the CREST director, they have to make sure that people are paid correctly to make it successful. Otherwise, people will there will be a lot of turnover. I think also, I see the program working closely with the police, but not the police, doing the work for the CREST program. So I see a lot of benefit, but I think some people in our community are feeling that, oh, with CREST program, we will have less police people, we're not going to be safe. It's not true. I see CREST program as complementing the work of the police, is what I want to say. And we have to put priority on public safety, especially to BIPOC, people of color. We have to put funding. Amherst is well resourced, so there has to be sufficient funding to make this program work. And I'm very, very concerned that, what we're starting off is not enough. And I just don't want to hear a couple years later to say, oh, we tried, it didn't work, let's move on, check the box. I don't want that to happen. If we put it as a priority, then I think this program can be very successful, like other parts of the country.
I wanted also for you to explain what that means. What does the CREST program do that benefits the police as well as the community?
So basically, it will reduce unnecessary workload for police. We pay our police like overtime. Sometimes they're responding to situations that, they don't need to because it's not violent situation. So in a way, it's actually will be more cost effective for our town, because we will not be, hopefully we will not be paying our police officers overtime anymore. I hope so. So that the police can focus on more serious violent situations that they're equipped to do, is one advantage that I see, physical advantage. And also for the BIPOC community, as a Black woman who have, Black children, I do worry anywhere in this country. It's not just in Amherst alone, about contact with the police. I do not want police to stop me because, of headlight being off, because it would be very traumatizing for me. So I rather, have somebody, non-uniform police staff say, oh, you don't have your, a headlight off, go and fix it or something, rather than, being confronted by police, for example. So it will make BIPOC folks in this town feel more safe psychologically and even physically, because sometimes police interaction can end with violence. It has happened in this town, though we don't have cases of people dying in the hands of our local police, but people have been physically abused by our town police officers. Does that answer your question, Andrew?
Yeah,
You're
it's-
on mute.
My concern, okay, my concern is I don't think a lot of people know exactly what how CREST does interface though with the police. Like what do they actually do? Or, what are some of the things that come from that? Because
So,
I
so
know
yeah,
what it is
what
because
we're
I've done
working,
it. Mhm.
do you want to take that, Russ?
sure. What we're working on is having a team of unarmed community responders. Our goal was to have them 24/7. So that if someone calls 911 with a minor dispute, an issue with substance abuse, a mental health issue, homelessness, well-being check, a whole variety of things, dispatch will have a set of protocols and they will send the the CREST responders out to those calls instead of sending police. And we had a consulting group that's worked with these programs across the country, analyze the call data from Amherst. And they identified that about half the calls are mental health related, and about half the calls are really call more for mediation, de-escalation kinds of responses. So we're looking at creating responder teams that have one person with experience and training in clinical mental health and one with community experience with de-escalation, mediation, conflict resolution. And it really is going to depend on whether we can find good people to hire. We're not committed to hiring people with a lot of advanced degrees. We're looking for, some people will have those probably, but we're looking for people with experience in the community and people who have a proven track record of being able to resolve conflicts and deal with people in the community who have these needs. So that will happen if somebody calls 911. And there will also be another number, which is a CREST number. And if you call the CREST number, they still won't be able to send CREST if there's a weapon involved or violence, happening. But other than that, you call the CREST number, you get the CREST team. And they will not send dispatch. Police can't be dispatched from a call to the CREST line unless it's very clear that there's an immediate danger. If it's a health danger, you'd get an ambulance. So we're going to have, you call CREST directly, you can call 911, and we'll have responders come out. Now, we don't quite have enough staffing to provide 24/7 coverage, but we're looking at providing coverage. You may get 24-hour a day over the weekends and get about 17 hours of coverage on the other days. And then during the wee hours of between 2 a.m. and 9 a.m., I think it's likely to be, we're still working on the details. There may have to be somebody on call who wouldn't be already on duty, but we would still provide a 24-hour response, even if we didn't have 24/7 coverage. Jennifer, does that sound like the way you understand what we're talking about?
Yes, and then there's a piece of proactiveness to it because they would be available during business hours for walk-ins, as well as the town received a grant for $450,000, and we are working with the African Diaspora Mental Health Association, so they will be able to provide follow-up for individuals that utilize the CREST program, or really for anyone, so they will be there too as well.
Sounds good. It really sounds good.
Yes.
I see Dee Shabazz has her hand up.
Get it deeper.
Hi, hello.
Hi.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for holding this I have a question regarding CRESS. After the work, of the important work of the CSWG and the many residents who were advocating for CRESS program, it appears to me, that the community is currently left out of the planning and implementation phase. So can Jennifer and Russ and Miss Pat respond to why the community's been left out of these meetings? And is there a larger strategy or benefit to the community being left out of CRESS implementation? Because I inquired to the town council and to the town manager about open meeting law and as to, why aren't these meetings being recorded? Why isn't the public invited to these CRESS implementation meetings? And basically the response of the town manager was that managing and implementing town departments, which it's not a department yet, is the responsibility of the town manager and therefore is not under open meeting law, under state law. So can you all speak to why this is occurring and why hasn't the public been invited in as a regular public meeting? Yeah, can you respond to that, please?
Oh, boy. Actually, initially when the CRESS implementation team was created, it was meant for the employees only, staff. And then CSWG had to push back. And we suggested that we have representatives from CSWG. So our co-chairs joined. And then Deborah and myself were alternate if one of our co-chairs were not to attend. But I do agree that those meetings should have been open to the public. One of the meetings that I attended for Brianna, it was there that I was able to push back to have a BIPOC mental health organization in Springfield to, service our residents who might be needing help when CRESS department is created, for example. I think there is a lot of benefits to getting resident input. I actually had people reach out to me asking, how is CRESS program going? How is it being implemented? We have folks who, get services, for example, from Survival Center. And this is not just for BIPOC folks, just for our resident white, whatever. And there is a lot of anxiety around people still calling 911 because for some people, it is triggering for them. And basically the town administrators are reluctant to just have a devoted CRESS phone number line. So that worries me a lot. CSWG can do as much as we can, but the power still, unfortunately, or fortunately, rests on the town manager and his staff. And it looks like that's, I don't know what else to say, but when CSWG, yeah.
Right, I appreciate that, Ms. Pat, but I'd like to hear from Jennifer Moyston and Russ Vernon Jones. Is there, since they've been in those meetings, is there a larger strategy? Because this is indeed a committee, and it's a committee under the auspices of our town government. And so, I saw what was sent to me, but in the same vein, we can also look at it, which as a taxpayer and as a resident, I look at it as an official committee of the town government.
Okay.
And so that we are not being, there's no transparency in terms of this planning and implementation, you know, is to me a violation of open meeting law. So
Okay,
is there one moment?
let me stop you on that because you're making a misstatement. I don't think have you read the open meetings, the latest ones? Because they aren't, and it's not the same, and you don't have to record
Okay,
if it's an open
Andrea,
meeting.
but it's
So,
what was sent to me by the town manager, and I'll be happy to share it. So I simply want to know from Russ Vernon Jones, who's attending the meeting, and Jennifer Moisten, is there a larger strategy as to why the public is not a part of these meetings, even simply as attendees, or that the meetings are recorded? So again, that's my question. And if they could
Okay.
respond to it, I'd appreciate it. That's it.
Okay, Russ or
Jennifer?
So, I mean, I can't speak for why the town manager doesn't have the meetings open to everyone. I'm like, at this point, we really just got past the point of understanding how the shifts were going to work. But I do hope, and we will be, and we already actually just did schedule our next two community outreach purposes, because Dee's right in the sense is that we need the community to be a part of it, because we need to know, we want them to be able to help make decisions in the way that this is moving forward. I can't speak for why it's not open meeting law, why it doesn't fall under open meeting law, or if it does follow open meeting law. I can't speak to why the town manager doesn't have it open that way, but we do know that the community does need to be a part of it. And so we are scheduling forums, and not just online. I mean, it's a little bit harder with being in, I don't know if this is post-COVID or not, but it's a little bit harder, but there is a point where it does have to actually be boots on the ground. And so we're aware of that. And we will be having different events to engage the community that way. But again, I can't speak for why he has chosen not to have them open to meeting. I don't know if I can see that whole thing. Okay, understand.
all right, wait a minute. Assist her in nominating candidates for school principal or task.
I mean, I can just say that I think the implementation team does need more connection with the community. And we had one open forum. We have two more we're scheduling now, and I think they need to be regular features of the process from here on. I will say that I think the three of us from the CSWG have been very consistent in trying to keep the implementation consistent with the information that Dee and her colleagues found in the community outreach from 7 Generations, and with what we heard from people in our process. So yes, I think we need more connection to the community and community involvement. And we've been working very hard to be consistent with all the input that we got through the whole process.
Yeah, the person put that on there. That was what I was trying to explain to Dee. I understand what you're saying. And once but at the first process, I mean, believe me, I am such an open meeting law person that I used to have to say it to the charter people when they were trying to do the charter. And people who were looking at me like I had grown a horn, because nobody reads like I do about everything that's like that. And it is not subject at this stage, at the stage of setup and things like that, to anybody. That's just the way it is. Now, we want to change the law, that's fine, but that's not a violation. Now, as they begin to set up the thing, as Jennifer was saying, and Russ, is that they are going to reach out, and people are going to be allowed to come in and talk and make ideas, because it's for the community, not for the people in the
And I
government.
appreciate, Andrea. I just wanted to know from Russ and from Jennifer Moisten, since they're in those meetings, is there a greater strategy? And I think Russ and Jennifer, to some extent, did signal that folks would be invited in and that they're needed. I'm going to, of course, look for that in the future when we are invited in. and you know, because it has to be shaped on some level with community input. So I appreciate your response. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And I would just like to just quickly add that I believe it's Thursday the 9th. There will be a finance committee to look at the financial aspect of the CREST program. I believe it's at, I actually don't know what time it is. I'm in the car, so I can't quite find that out right now. But there is a meeting on Thursday where CREST will be discussed with the finance committee. So I do know that the implementation team will be there for that. And so we're also using that time to be able to not just advertise, but to announce too, that we will be having the 2 other meetings as well.
Okay, that helps. Thank you.
Well, and there's another meeting coming up. There's a town council meeting, which is of course governed by the open meeting law, at which the town manager will be presenting the formal proposal for the new department for CREST. So that's a public meeting.
Is that Monday? Is that going to be Monday or?
Is that this Monday?
I believe so. His
Jennifer, do you know?
reorganization. He's also going to he's presenting, I believe it's this Monday. It's the reorganization for the CREST program and for the Department of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion.
So if I may, just very quickly, I think that has not been addressed or mentioned, the elephant in the room, is that the chief of police, there has been some pushback in those meetings that he would not say publicly if we were the open meeting. There has been some pushback because I do get feedback from some of the CREST implementation committee team members. So that's one thing. It's all about money.
But Pat,
Okay?
I mean,
it's all about money, and it's all about police union. I mean, let's be very transparent here. Okay, so we have administrators, town administrators, going to town council or going, talking publicly, and then when it comes to private meeting, like CREST implementation is a different, ball game. I just want to expose that today.
And Pat, I just want to say that there's always going to be pushback, no matter what end, from someone from somewhere. And it is a benefit that there are the CREST members in there to push back from that pushback. And that's a beautiful thing, because that does happen. It's not like he just pushes back and then it's over. There's an equal pushback for every pushback. I mean, we have to work this out together as a group. And the pushback from either side, it's irrelevant. We got to get it done and we have to work it out together. I mean, I do understand what you're saying, but if he pushes back, somebody else pushes back too. So Alicia and Brianna do a great job of expressing how they feel, so that it's not so much that it seems like just one side is running that meeting. The meetings don't work that way. I don't know, Russ, if you want to speak on that or not.
Well, I would just say that, in my opinion, Alicia, Brianna, and I have been very consistent with the vision that the CSWG and the community put forward, and quite united in that. And I think have been thoroughly supported by Jennifer. And it's a process. As far as I'm concerned, we're immovable on the things that really matter to the community.
I want to echo that the, former CSWG members, Ross, Brianna, and Alicia, have been pushing back. But I just feel that as much as the CREST team, implementation team are, working very hard, I just feel that what we recommended will not necessarily happen that way. One of the biggest area is the dispatch aspect of the program. I don't think the town administrators want a separate, dedicated CREST dispatch unit. And that's a huge, huge concern. The fact that people still have the option to call in one location. is the same location, whether you call CREST program or you call 911. That's not our vision at all. But the people in power have made it that way. It's all about money, wanting to retain, positions with dispatcher and so on and so forth. We need to be, aware of what is going on behind the scene. As much as Ross, Brianna, and Alicia, they're pushing hard, and I appreciate that, but that's not the original vision that CSWG had in terms of where people should call in. It will still be routed to police dispatch unit. There is no separation when people call. And the public needs to know that. They need to know that.
Ash?
Andrea, just to make this conversation is very important, and it is a brown bag. It's just a chance for us all to ask questions and to explore. But I did want to say that first, we're really aware that all the really hard work, actually incredible work that CSWG did, and the research and all the background that has gone into these recommendations and the proposals is just the beginning. And it's really almost the hardest work is now underway, and the town can't afford, I believe, for the town's welfare, can't afford to have it stumble because there's lack of financing, stumble because there's not enough understanding and support for what has been proposed. So, and I think, Dimitri, your point of getting more public awareness about the implementation is really important in all of these areas, because it shouldn't fall on the shoulders of just a few to make the points. And I did want to say that this kind of meeting and others like it are very important to get the support of the larger community. Because there, as you said, there's always going to be pushback, and there needs to be an understanding of where strategically we can be most helpful in moving this forward. And really, that's one of the purposes of this meeting. And so anyway, we invite other. But I wanted to say that thank you for raising these issues and making it clear. One, funding is still an issue. When you have a change in a bureaucracy, and so it's always going to cost more to make the transition. You can't stop everything and start a new one just like it. There's a transition period, and that absolutely requires more funding than what you have in your budget. It always does, and so we need to fight for that. And whether it's through, if it's a transition grant, okay, but it has to be long enough to make it possible to do it right. And I'm very concerned that and I think all of us are concerned that the CRISP program get off to a good start and be seen to be really doing what the CRISP, what the Community Safety Working Group had in mind. The other thing, it seems to me, is that we need to get the Community Safety and Social Justice Committee in place pretty soon too, because they will be a force that will be an important force in helping move this forward. Thanks. So, sorry,
Martha?
floor's open.
Are you finished? Okay, Martha?
Yeah, well, just to follow that up of what can we do, it seems maybe one of the first things is to join in the Finance Committee meeting this coming Thursday. We have to check out what time it is, but that's certainly an open meeting. And if they're going to be discussing the budget for CREST, maybe it's important that as many as possible of us should be there. And then also we have 6 new council members coming in January. And I think it's important that as individuals, as well as representing groups, that we try to speak to those 6 new members now and over these next few weeks about what we feel are the most important things and how they can help with this new thing. I mean, I think that we have to just use our individual persuasions as much as possible besides sort of the formal group ones, to try to just never let the subject drop, keep persisting.
I also think, to be truthful, that I just want to go back and look at the charter and find out how they can make a change in dates, because to make final decisions or close to final decisions before at the end of December is dangerous. Because if you have new council, decisions are being made and new people come in and the decision's already made. And from what I'm understanding in terms of budget, even though it's not final, it's a big one. You know, it's something that's a little scary that, and I didn't even realize it because I was just hoping there wouldn't be a charter. So again, you know, I feel guilty about not realizing that everything was going to be more or less decided, or a lot of it, before December of that particular year. And the new council doesn't take, you know, doesn't take their positions until January, and that doesn't make sense. You know, that people may change, other people may go, and new people come along and they look up and they're told this is what it is, you know. So, and Deep, understand what I was saying. I was saying to you, not that what you said was wrong. I was saying that was not open meeting law. That was just basics, is what you're talking about. That should be more people understanding what's going on. And once they get a commission, then that applies to them. That was all I was talking about, is that let's make apples and apples and oranges and oranges. So, you know, understandable. And thank you, Ash, and thank you, Martha, for those comments, you know, because we are going to, as the Racial Justice Social Committee, we are going to be looking at all of it also, you know, and asking for the public to become involved more and more as we go along here. Because we don't want this thing to start with somebody controlling it. And I do understand the money thing that Ms. Pat's talking about, because people get overtime. Too bad. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was a teacher. There was no such thing. So anyway, you know, you can live without overtime, like without excessive overtime. So, you know.
Yeah. Nadia, you had your hand up and then you put it down.
Oh, I'm sorry, Nadia, I didn't see.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, hi. Thank you, everyone. You're probably wondering who am I and how did I get here? I don't live in Amherst, but I did live in Amherst from 1978 to 81 when I was in graduate school. I'm sitting in my home in Hancock, Mass, and I got a email from the League of Women Voters in Williamstown the other day about this meeting, and I was interested. Two things I wanted to say. My question that I had about 20 minutes ago has been answered. And that was, I was listening to the discussion and wondering if you were including any of the kids in high school in the community, because I always see the kids in our community, we're no matter where we live, we're turning our community that we care about over to our kids. And to me, getting them to buy in when they're in high school, becoming young adults about to be registered voters, perhaps holding public office at some point, those who don't leave. So you answered my question. That sounds like no, that has not, because I wanted to know how that worked. But has there been any outreach to the kids in high school?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Oh, can you tell me about that? What it involved?
So one of our CSWG member is Darius Cage, and he provides input. He consults with his classmates about what they would like to see. And it was his idea about the youth center close to downtown.
Mhm.
And yeah. So
Thank you.
Darius is in the 10th grade right now, right? I think he's.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
That's wonderful. Yeah, and I have to jump off soon. I'm sorry. But I want to thank you again for this. But as you've probably heard, that in Pittsfield, which is my next, that's my city here in Western Mass, we're waiting for the arrival of 60 Afghanistan refugees coming soon. And we have a meeting. I'm one of the volunteers. I'm the education team leader. And so on Monday, I've learned so much from this meeting today. Because I'm thinking about the Pittsfield community and what kind of outreach efforts. That's really why I jumped on today. And it's been, I just want to say it's been very informative and interesting. And I want to thank you all. And good luck on everything. I think you're doing really hard work, but it's really, it's critical and it's essential. So thank you.
Nadia, do you have an email address you could share with us, or
Sure.
the hosts have it,
Sure.
or something?
Yeah,
Put it
I'll
in
put it
chat.
in the chat so I don't take up time here. I'll chat it.
Okay, well, thank you for joining.
Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much. And I'll hop
Thank
off
you.
soon. I'll put my address in, but good luck to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
So let me call on Russ and then Marcy.
I just wanted to say, I looked up the two meetings. The Finance Committee meeting is Tuesday, December 7th at 2 PM.
2 p.m. Wow.
And then the presentation by the town manager about the creation of the new CREST department and the new DEI department is to the TSO subcommittee of the town council. Although I'm told they expect to have most of the council there. And that meeting is Thursday, December 9th at 5:30 PM.
Mhm. Great. Great.
Okay.
Thank you. Marcy.
Thanks, everybody. Miss Pat, when you first started at the very beginning of this wonderful program, you talked about how you saw the work of CSWG as reparations. And this is a topic I'm very interested in. I understand what direct reparations means. I think I understand what that is. And I also have heard mixed reactions about the ideas of institutional change in structural, white supremacy-based structural aspects of government, et cetera, and making those changes. Is that or is that not considered part of reparations? And so I was, I'm curious about that, and I'd like to hear more, but I also I'm wondering, is there some bridge between the work of CSWG and all of these wonderful proposals and this relatively newly formed reparations assembly? Are, like, there's money, there's attention, there's change in institutional stuff happening in both areas. And I'm just wondering, like, is there a bridge, and is there working together in these two parts of making change in Amherst? So that's my question.
Oh boy. I can speak for myself. When I did my initial comment about seeing the work of CSWG from my perspective being reparation, not just only in terms of financial compensation, but as well as decision making. Who are making decisions in our town? Who are the administrators? You hardly see any administrator that look like me in our town, and also in our town council. So we have a lot of work to do to repair, what has been status quo in this town for a long, long time. In our school system, we all know that, kids of color are, disciplined more than white kids. We know that some low-income folks are assumed to be on special education, and I can go on. So I think that even though people have a lot of expectation on DEI director, the way I view DEI, meaning diversity, equity, and inclusion, is the responsibility of all of us, the resident, the staff, councilors, elected officials, school committee members, everybody. There's not going to be one person magic wand that will come and fix everything. In terms of bridging, that's why it still concerns me that we don't have the replacement committee for CSWG that could be my vision. I can't speak for anyone, to be like a committee that monitor and hold accountable if the town say that we're going to work on equity. We want to see results. We want to see action, not fancy document written. I will hope that that's what that replacement committee will do. And I can go on and on, but I would like other people to join in. So decision-making is a huge issue. Even in business community, I used to run restaurant in Amherst, and I never knew when the Chamber of Commerce, where I was a financial member, meaning I pay my dues, when they elect officials, our board, Chamber of Board, it's all white people. And when I questioned it, there was no response. They didn't have any process. They look into fellow white people to put them in, board. And then who makes up the majority of businesses in this town? People of color, restaurants.
Mhm.
Go figure. So reparation, it's a lot that we need to work on. We're starting, a little bit, but we all have work to do, is what I would say.
I'm thinking about like the funding for the teen center or for the cultural center, like in those aspects too, to me, and again, in my ignorance, I would see those as well as all of the, the community responding and all of that safety stuff, but those programs would definitely be reparations related for sure, in terms of creating more safety and cultural attention to non-white communities. And so, like, is reparations, and no one on here is from the Reparations Assembly, but I don't think, but anyway, these are the questions too, like, are they looking at those programs as part of the funding for reparations and stuff?
What I can say very quickly, what CSWG had recommended is not what the town is trying to do. They want to move the youth program, the youth center, to LSSC department. And that's not what we're asking for. I know right now we have a Black male director for LLCC, but that person may not be there forever. What if that person moved on and then they hire a white person? So what? But if we have a youth center and we have the social justice committee, ensuring that we always have a BIPOC leader for youth center, that then becomes BIPOC space for our youth in town. But white folks can also come, because white kids have many places that is their spaces, but it's not for us. That's one thing. For the cultural center, I have a lot of apprehension around that, because the town is not even discussing that at all. And that to me is like those in power. So that's what power does. People in power get to decide for all of us what is good for us and which is wrong. So nobody is even mentioning the cultural center, which I think is very critical for our psychological safety in this town. I need to go to a place where I feel safe. So like I referenced before, we have a long way to go to make reparation concrete in our town.
Good. Jennifer?
Yep. So, Marcy, I am the staff liaison to the Reparations Assembly. And so, they're really charged with finding sustainable and renewable, right, funding sources for the stabilization fund for reparations for Amherst. And those reparations will be in many forms. So they do connect, part of it was the youth center, part of it was the multicultural center, and making sure that there's some sort of funding, or at least continual funding for those programs. So those are the things that they are working on, and they do cross over.
Oh, great.
It's, thank you, Jennifer. I think it's really important that we see that the towns see that the Reparations Assembly and the and the follow-on and the implementation of all the work of the CSWG and the new CSS Justice Committee be working in synergy, working together. One of the things that white supremacy does is divide and conquer. And it's very important that this not create a sense of competition rather than synergy. So I hope that we can, and I'm very grateful, Jennifer, you mentioned that the Assembly is considering those funds for the youth center and the community center.
Yeah. Yes. I'm sorry, Ash. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You were breaking up. I didn't realize you weren't finished.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's very important that the Reparations Assembly and the follow-on and the implementation of the community safety working groups be seen as synergistic rather than competitive. It's very important, and we as a league will really do everything we can to support that. So, right.
Yeah, and Dee put in the chat, and I absolutely agree. We are going to have the Reparations Assembly. We're going to ask them to do a brown bag with us. You know, I think we're having a health Medicare for All for January, but and Doreen Cunningham to DEI, which may be the same month. We can do that with them or early in March. We'll see what their schedule is, but we definitely have them on our agenda. So yes, I agree. Because I had at the Amherst Club, we had a presentation and it was excellent. It really was. And I would, you know, I suggest that as we do these things, we let people know and as many people come and listen and ask questions so they can find out, not from one or two people, but from actually listening. So that was part of the reason for a brown bag concept. Anyway, Vera, did you have a question or a comment?
Oh, I see that Vera has raised her hand.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you. Sorry if this got brought up before, but I wanted to see where the conversation or the progress is around, or the discussion around stipended committee appointments, and also that is anyone thinking about perhaps how problematic it is. It can be if, you know, one person is in charge of appointments for the various town committees, not just committees that are specifically related to the topic at hand.
Right. This
But I can answer that. So the CSSJC and the Resident Oversight Board will be stipends. I'm not 100% of the amount. And I know that now the town manager, and I think the Human Rights Commission is another one that perhaps might be included in there to be stipends. And then the town is looking overall at all the boards and committees and how, if needed, because I think at the same time, stipends need to be offered to just encourage people to be part of the different boards and committees, because that could be a barrier, and not just like financially, but it's like taking home from time out from cooking dinner, or it's taking time out from doing something else that they could be that they would need to be compensated for. So I do know that the town manager is looking into that piece, but I do know for a fact that CSJJC and the Resident Oversight Board will be stipend, and he's looking at the Human Rights Commission as well.
So if I may add very quickly, I do want to recognize the woman who made this possible, who raised it last year, because it's so easy for us to forget history. And that is Dr. D. Shabazz. She was the woman who insisted that CSWG members have to get stipend. And for me, as a businesswoman, and Amherst is well resourced, I don't see any shame in having the town, pay stipend to all the volunteers. There's nothing to be ashamed of. You can be a volunteer and still get stipend. It's not like we don't have any money. We do have. Amherst Town have money, depends on where the priorities are. So I'm glad the town manager is looking into having all the committees, members get stipend. I think it's a good thing so that we can have more participation.
There's
And
another.
it will save the town a lot of money from business perspective. It will save it because you have people doing some research, some work that the paid employees don't have enough time. We're overworking our employees anyway. So it's very economical. It makes a lot of financial sense. Why wouldn't we, provide stipend for folks?
Good. There's another issue that the Racial Justice Committee has taken up recently, and that is the appointments and structures of the committees. We, of course, and that came up in particular when we looked at the library and the issue of who was getting appointed to the library committee. And I don't know, Marcy, maybe you'd like to have say something about that, because it's not just the stipends are critical, and really thanks to Demetra for getting this actually a part of the change of the structure of the town and the way that the town gets more representation on it from the BIPOC and Black population, because and the poor too, and also though the structure of the committees often excludes people whose voices are important and don't get heard. So Marcy, maybe you could say something about this, because
Well, sure. Actually, Bonnie and Martha and I had a conversation with Paul Bockelman about this issue related to the library committee, because I had heard from the library director what the construction was of that committee, and it was just ridiculous how little input there would be from any resident, and clearly the way it was set up, it was most likely not going to have any BIPOC participation at all. And it was in my District 2 meeting that Lynn Grissomer said that meeting, and Miss Pat, you were there too, that that committee is not set in stone. It could be enlarged. It could have more people. So it felt like an opening. And it sets a precedent also for other capital committees as these projects get going, like what is going to be the framework of who comes on that committee. So they need a finance person, they need the town manager, they need whoever is in charge of whatever, if it's DPW or, library, but do they need 2 trustees? No. Do they need, several people? Anyway, they need more input from community members. And then the question is, if a committee gets too big, how do you manage it all? And we all had some ideas about that. And also who would chair the committee seemed very crucial as a factor. And one of the things that the town manager brought up is just, there are a lot of committees that are asking for BIPOC representation now and participation. And it's really been difficult to get people to join in. And there's it's not, a surprise that it's hard to get people to volunteer in those things, and stipends might help, but it's difficult to fill those positions, as I think is that part of the holdup with the SJC committee getting more people? I don't know, but it's, Miss Pat's shaking her head that that's not a problem. Anyway, I don't really have much more to add about that. Maybe Martha does from that meeting.
I had a follow-on conversation then with Paul Bockelman on this same theme. So I think we sort of made the example, our Racial Justice Committee made the example of the library building committee and kind of this example, and then there's going to be follow-on committees for our other projects and so on and so forth. But this seems like the first one, now that the library project has been approved by the voters. Now is the appropriate time to change the nature of that board and have a substantial number. My magic number was at least 5, maybe should be 7 of diverse residents on that committee that would help define how the interior of this newly designed library is going to be designed, what are going to be the uses of it, et cetera, actually making substantial inputs at this stage to the final phases of the design. And so I certainly, Paul Bockelman seems very open to this, also talked with Lynn Griesemer about it, so that she kind of understands the challenges and the problems and why this is needed too. And I really think that if anybody can think of, any, friends, colleagues, whatever, who might be appropriate or interested in joining the sort of this library committee to focus on the design of the interior and how it will be useful to people of the various communities, now would be the time to suggest names if you have any. Because I think if we keep the pressure on and can provide Paul with lists of names, that it will happen. And we've talked with Paul and Lynn both about the importance of having an appropriate chair who recognizes the importance of a broad-based representative committee.
So Pat and then Russ.
So a couple of things. Mercy and Martha, thank you for your time in meeting with the town manager and for your comments. A couple of things I would say is that I don't see the reason why nomination of committees in this town has to be secretive. They need to be transparent. I know people who apply to starting committees. I'm not mentioning no names, but it seems to me that some progressive, courageous, truth-telling folks in this town get blacklisted because they don't want those folks to rock the boat. The African Heritage, whatever committee, there are people who applied to it that didn't get nominated. Just they don't want them to, rock the boat, for example. And so also people will look at how BIPOC folks have been treated historically in this town, from school committee, people of color, how they've been treated that way, how a town councilor just, not so far this year, disrespected CSWG publicly. And I can go on and on. Who wants to join when they feel that people who look like them are being disrespected? That's on number 2. I want to jump very quickly in terms of our town employee pool. I am tired of referring people to go and apply. There is this perception already. People who are highly qualified, who have all the credentials, who have applied in the past, they don't get hired because they don't want them to rock the boat. They want people to fall in line. That's what is happening in this town. The money is taxpayers' money. It's your money, it's my money. And we're saying, where are they? Are we going to have enough BIPOC to fill press department or DEI? What I say is, yes, we have more than that, but are we willing to take that risk to bring on board people who will bring meaningful change and not people who rubber stamp stuff? This is what is happening, okay? People have applied, they've been passed over. People with highest degree, what is the highest degree? PhD, with direct work experience. They did not get hired, okay? They put other people that will, fall in place. I'm repeating myself. This is what is happening in town. Why can't we know people who applied for committee members? Why does the town manager have to keep it secretive? The only reason why I probably have a shot to get into the Community Safety Social Justice Committee is because of something we crafted at CSWG. It was my idea. I said we have to have some representation. That's the only way. And so myself and Deborah Ferreira have applied. We put it in such a way that with the Resident Oversight Board, we have to have 2 representation for CSWG. I'm probably one of the blacklisted people if I were to apply to any other committee. So I'm very safe in the replacement committee. This is what is happening. We need to be honest about what is happening in our town. You don't get voted in because if you're too far progressive, who goes to vote? Many white folks people. Look at our diversity in this town. We don't have enough, BIPOC folks. So if you want to get elected, fall in place. Or if they think, you're new, you're young, they can manipulate you, then you might get elected. That's what is happening. Let's call spade a spade. Okay, thank you.
Russ?
To Russ?
I just wanted to highlight the importance of who's screening the folks who apply for a committee. We got the Community Safety Working Group that we did because there was a majority BIPOC screening committee selecting who was going to be nominated. When we wrote our Resident Oversight Board, we wrote in a majority BIPOC screening committee to select the volunteers who would be nominated for election. The charter has some other method that has some, I think, tiny 3-person committee, which I think is all white. I'm not sure, but you could research that. So I think majority BIPOC screening committees, can make a big difference. In terms of, how to be effective at this point, I think getting the Community Safety and Social Justice Committee up and going is really a high priority. And I would urge each of you to talk to people get them to apply, both white people and BIPOC folks, and then pressure the town manager to get this committee started, whether he's got a full complement of people or not. I don't think we should be waiting any longer on that. Secondly, I would ask that you keep pressure on the town council around the Resident Oversight Board and around the stopping the practice of low-level traffic stops and around budget for all of our proposals. And that would be, to my mind, the places that you all could make the biggest difference right away. And all of those things could happen almost continuously over the next few weeks and months. Thank you. And thank you again for inviting us.
Yes, I'm thinking that the CSWG members probably didn't get a copy of the letter that our Racial Justice Committee sent to the town council. We did send a letter at the beginning of November, just really emphasizing the importance of a really high priority for the CSWG recommendations and the importance of a long-term plan. That what we stated in the letter was that we felt it was just as important as the capital plan, that sort of a 5-year plan of what are going to be the capital projects, that there ought to be a 5-year plan that sort of maps out the strategy for implementing the various racial equity initiatives and so on.
Great. Thank you.
Our committee had sent you folks a thank you letter, but I guess I think we didn't include a copy of our letter to the town council, and we probably should have.
Yeah, and also the letter really urging the adequate financing for CRES. And
yes, yeah. I mean, that was part of the letter. I mean, we tried to say, a community's values are reflected in what you said as your budget priorities.
Thank you, guys. I think somebody forwarded that letter to CSWG. I remember reading that letter. Thank you,
Yeah.
guys.
We
Sorry.
also emphasized in that letter, which didn't make any difference, of course, but we really did push and know how important it was for there to be continuity between the end of CSWG
Yeah.
and the beginning of this CSSJC.
Mhm.
And now that as more and more time goes on, I agree with you 100%. It's very problematic and very dangerous, really.
So just very quickly. So we recommended 7 board members. As of today, I know 5 people who already applied. 4 BIPOC folks and 1 white, very progressive woman. There is no reason why a screening committee will not, interview these folks and create this board while they wait for more people. But at least I'm speaking for 100% sure, 5 people have already applied. With 4 BIPOC, it's like majority right there. Why can't we start that committee ASAP? But no, because some of the candidates will rock the boat. So the town council, they don't want, some of those folks. That's what is happening. And so when I saw the email sent out, we're still looking for more. I'm like, excuse me, why don't you start interviewing people that already applied? What are we waiting for?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ben. I think
Yeah.
we've gone on for about an hour and a half, and that was about the scheduled time. And it's been very, very, very helpful to have this discussion and to hear the priorities and to see. I can say that the Racial Justice Committee is very much behind these priorities that you've laid out, and we will be working constantly to see that things move forward. And we expect pushback. That's, as you said, Jennifer, it's inevitable. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, Ash. We will definitely be staying on this, this process, because we would like to see it happen also. We thought maybe they were waiting for people to apply, but if you've got 5 people that have applied, at least we could look at that. Plus we have, you and Deborah, who have the experience of how you got there. I mean, I don't quite get it. I do get it, but people need to give it up, because this is going to change, and we are trying to make change for the better for all of our children, for all the people in this area, because it will benefit everyone. People don't realize that, but it will. It benefits everyone if we are on a similar page, or we want to move things up together. You can't do it unless you get the trust of people who are also an integral part of the community. So we need to keep working at it, and which is the thing that Marcy said to the League of Women Voters is, we can't stay as a task force, because racial justice is not something that's going to end this year, the injustices. So now we have turned into a committee, because we know that our work is just beginning, just like CSWG knows that the work is just starting now also. So thank you so much, Ms. Pat. Thank you so much, Russ. Thank you so much, Jennifer, and all of the people who came and those who had to leave. But we thank you for your input, and keep us on our toes also, and make suggestions. Again, Dee had told me that also, and I said absolutely, we would like the reparations people to do a presentation also. So look forward to that in the 2022. Our health thing is going to be the next thing in January, but definitely we'll be emphasizing a lot on DEI and the other things that go with it. So definitely, we thank you all for coming and for participating, and thank you again. We can't say it enough, CSWG people. You are just amazing, and we wouldn't even be this far if it were not for your work and your research and your love of what we need to happen. So from the League, and especially from the RJ you know, from the Racial Justice Committee, we thank you profusely for today and for your work over the last year and a half. We just can't imagine having a life and the work that you did, because it's amazing. And we're gonna fight for what you have put forth, very much so.
And we love to hear that you're doing a book.
Yeah, we are.
Because it
That
is
is-
really,
that's a
that's
good
really
idea, though.
important as a part of this town's history.
We forget, you know.
I also just want to put in a little shout out to Jennifer, because honestly, you know, it's like when you have a medical problem and you have this specialist and that specialist and all these different people, but nobody is the one who is, you know, kind of hearing all of it and understanding all of it. And Jen, I think it's so fabulous that you are the one who is the liaison to these different committees. And so like that answer that you could give about the reparations group was very useful to us. And we didn't have, there's not just all these, you know, compartmentalized places, partly because of you. So I think that, you know, we all really appreciate you and your work too, and know that it's not easy.
No.
So thanks.
I agree.
Thank you so much.
I agree.
You know, and for the committee, please tell the other members how much we appreciated them, and we understand that things come up, unfortunately, Saturday before the holidays, all kinds of stuff. So, but thank you all, Russ and Ms. Patton. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for coming, even though you're in the middle of doing some other stuff, as always. And thank you for your questions and answers, and you know, keep us in, you know, look out for us as we go forward. And thank you, everyone. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.